Okay, perfect. Yes, we are here. Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to do this. I wish I had better lighting. That is my fault, not your fault. So I want to go right into the swing of things and be able to share my screen because I have a really exciting presentation for you guys today. We have 30 minutes, so I want to get right into it. So let me do that here. Hi, hi, hi. Yeah. Okay. Let me know if you guys are able to see my screen. Okay. I want to keep going then. Yes. So welcome everyone. I'm Alexis Wilson. I am now a principal industry specialist. I've done this presentation multiple times with different groups and different flavor of people. So I'm really excited to be able to share this with you guys. Just to kind of get started here. So I'll introduce myself a little bit. So I've been in this business of governance, risk, and compliance at least for about 15 years. And before I came to Amazon, I was a consultant at EY. And so I worked with many different customers, clients, different business units on their state of compliance. And so I either worked as an auditor, so assessing other people's state of compliance, or as a internal expert that would be able to advise customers on the best way to achieve what they're going through from a compliance perspective. In navigating and coming to Amazon, when the scale of the problems and the flavor of the problems are a little bit different. But as I've gotten less industry focused and more enabling customers in general, there's some themes that I'm starting to see. The other thing too is I work a lot with public policy and regulators, and personnel that are kind of building the landscape of what compliance is to come in the next couple of years. So I want to impart that wisdom, the technology, as well as obviously the complex compliance challenges that are coming in the future, so you can be able to be caught up on that in the next 30 minutes. So let's talk about the current state. So obviously you see here, like there's a lot of high profile cybersecurity based issues. Think of those issues. It's really triggered a lot of enforcement, a lot of governance, risk, and compliance mandates in various industries. No one's safe. So what ends up happening is when these things happen and there's a rise of those challenges, regulations start to appear, and laws and compliance guidelines start to be enacted to deal with the specific risks that come out of these specific challenges that we face currently today. So nothing ever happens in a vacuum. A lot of the customers that I talk to, a lot of the people that are working in GRC in their internal industries are like thinking, oh my gosh, now we have to comply with this, this, and this. It's like, no, it always happens for a reason. If there's an upswing of something, obviously there's a sense that, well, maybe we're not as protected, or maybe we're not as on top of things as we think we are. More sensitive data is migrated online and now leveraged through the cloud. So that's why we are here. So I want to talk through some of the regulatory response to these incidents, right? So infrastructure has gone through a kind of a big resurgence over the past like 15 years. That certain systems were not considered infrastructure, but now that they've migrated over to the cloud, a lot of the infrastructure pieces have migrated over to the cloud. These incidents, these situations do apply. Next is also the NIS2, the EU's directive, which is for national information security. There's the executive order, right, that was produced by Biden for improving the nation's cybersecurity specific to infrastructure. The National Cyber Director of the U.S. was just appointed, and then a new state privacy legislation is also being included. All of these things have culminated to there's been specific incidents that yields a fear, and these are ways to address that fear. Pending regulatory mandates that are upcoming. So one, SEC, which just all financial markets that are on anything that's on the NASDAQ, anything that is in for public trading is in SEC's mandate, right? They proposed some rules on cybersecurity, risk management strategy, governance, incident disclosure. So you're starting to see more of the regulators taking very prescriptive guidance and rulings regarding cybersecurity. And that does affect everyone here, but it's just that. Then DoD is starting to take, and the government usually is leading when it comes to these kind of requirements, but they're starting to get more specific to the industry, and that's where you'll see CMC, which is a cybersecurity maturity model certification. It's very different than a lot of the other certifications because it's not necessarily related to, oh, you've done this benchmark this far. It's here is the suite of things you could get to, like level 1, 2, 3, or beyond, and it's enforcing certain contracts, third party, to be at least a level 2. Or, oh, some could be a level 3 when you're dealing with high sensitivity information. It was the first one to really combine procurements contracts for new vendors with a cybersecurity maturity level setting, right? So there's also procurement rules to implement like cyber executive order that's happening. And then software bills and materials are also pending regulatory mandates. Now, these are very specific to the US. There's a lot coming also in the EU. One of the things, I don't think we'll be able to get to it here, but since I've done this presentation, obviously, there has been a resurgence of AI, specifically regarding Gen AI. And so we're starting to see some acts come in specific to generative AI and AI. The EU is planning to launch not generative, but AI specific bill in 2025. And Congress is also working on something as well. So as you see new technology that comes, it starts with cloud and some different risks, and now it's moving to AI. So that is definitely a thing. Everyone can play along. We're all talking about generative AI, but you got to automatically think with new technology, regulation, and new risks are going to be introduced, which means new regulations going to be coming. So new technology, new risks, new incidents, new regulation. That's what happens. So there's some rules that are coming from public sector that's actually going to affect other industries. So we say public sector, we're talking about government, but not just US government in general. So domestic policy, goes out, kind of propagate to all these different regulated industries. And we say regulated industries, it's industries that are big enough, have big enough risks that require separate regulation specifically for it. So think of energy. Think of payment card systems. Think of healthcare. Those are all, they're not really considered like government. They're really considered regulated industries on their own right. Think of also incident reporting mandates. A lot of cloud deals with FedRAMP, which is a very US government-based compliance framework. But we're starting to see other industries adopt some of the pieces they like from FedRAMP, which includes incident reporting mandates. National cyber strategy is starting to come into play and to combine all the different regulations and mandates across industries and pulling them together. SBOM is more so for supply chain, and they're starting to ask for attestation and new privacy rules that are coming into play that are requiring more assessments. All right, so also part of the current state, the reason why we're able to talk to you about this is because AWS deals with a lot of certifications, like a lot, with many requirements. And these are just some of certifications, they're the kind of the big ones, but we deal with a lot of them. There's actually about to be a new ISO framework specific for AI. That's 47001. Anyone can look that up, but we're dealing with that too. But yeah, but this is not just to say, yeah, we do a lot. It's in order to understand what is coming and to be prepared for the next certification, it's not just a matter of just saying we got to get the certification. It's also being able to influence, understand what's going on, and seeing how it affects all of these different industries, and seeing if we see some common threads here, because we don't want to be able to kind of hit everything at once with a separate group. We want to be able to consolidate and really see what those trends are. So the currency also includes continuous audit, which informs our posture. So you see our flywheel here. We go through this all the time. We are audited every day of the year by somebody. So we really do know how this works. And that's why when we're giving you those insights of, look, like this is what's coming, it's real because we either have a full hand in it or we are working with others to like influence what's coming down the line, or we see a risk and we see what that need is going to look like. So we want to give you a 3-year outlook. So you can read a lot of this here, but based on what we're seeing, based on the new technology, the risks, the incidents that occur and the regulations that are coming, we're starting to see some themes that trigger this is what the next frontier is going to be, regardless of technology. So one, we already see increased demand for moving regulated workloads to the cloud. Now, before, regulated workloads, it not saying that it wasn't, it's kind of the last line to come to the cloud because of how much requirements that are on them. But now we're seeing that push. There's going to be less reliance on certifications, SOC reports itself, but more on transparency and raw, unfiltered visibility, right? Like I love my SOC reports, I love my ISO reports, I love my FedRAMP reports, but let's see a lot of regulators adopt more of a, I want to see it. And I want to see it not just at the scheduled time, but whenever. And that's where the real-time reporting comes in. We're also seeing increased development of just automated mechanisms to service this. The scale that we have to deal with, you can't just throw bodies at it. You're going to have to do some sort of automation. And everyone, sometimes people kind of cringe a little bit at automation because there's obviously still the work to build a thing to automate, and there still is errors that occur, and you have to make sure there's human beings in there. But it's not about replacing humans when it comes to that. It's allocating humans differently and having automation provide things at a scale that a body cannot do, right? So how do you move left of boom? And when I say, we say this a lot at Amazon, like left of boom, but left of boom really implies you know what's coming. You see the 3-year outlook. How do you figure out how to do certain things before the boom occurs when all this actually is required? Like going back, like before you get like 1,500 customers coming into the cloud and now requiring these things. Before you get regulators saying, oh, we're not going to take SOC reports, we want our own thing and we want transparency. Before you have regulators requiring for real-time reporting outside of the scope and time frame of an audit. Before you get all that, how do you prepare for it? So obviously, AWS, we have the security solutions. And usually in this, and reinforced this year, we went through this presentation with 2 of my colleagues. One was Alice Seifert, who's the US public policy person. And then the other person, let me make sure I got this right. Yes, okay. One is Alice Seifert, who's the public policy person, and the second one is Rob Nolan, who is a distinguished like chief technologist and solution architect within AWS. We talk through these security solutions and dive into them, show them. We don't have that kind of time today. Right? We don't. It's 118. It ain't gonna happen. But what we're able to do is at least show like the highlights of it. So what are these things for? You see the kind of like verticals of what we're thinking of. And I'm not here to tell you you got to do exactly these specific solutions. What I'm going to tell you to do, though, is think of each of these verticals in solving your problem. So you need identity access management, detective controls, infrastructure protection, data protection, and incident response. And you need them to be able to provide to auditors and regulators saying like, look, this is how I control the risk. We talked about the incidents that occur. That is a risk. We want to make sure that we're controlling it in an appropriate way and something that is recognizable to regulators. So whatever cloud agnostic here, whatever cloud provider you use, whatever system you use, you want to make sure that you're covering your bases here. So takeaways for this. See, look, I'm quick. I told you I was going to get in and out. So this is, we want to push for compliance by design and automated evidence reasoning. Like we go through a lot of pieces for this, but if you're going to think about the 3-year outlook, you have to get to this from a software development and IT operations standpoint. You want to build a culture of trust, cross-function education, collaboration. This is not a one-shop person deals with this, right? You are dealing with a whole company, a whole organization coming together to be able to do something like this. So when we look at 3-year outlook, when we look at those issues there, it's not just on a GRC person to solve, it's on a company to solve. So building that culture of like cross-functional education about what that means you're talking to your procurement folks, you're talking to the business, you're talking to every group to say this is how this is actually affecting you. And then once you talk to them, you want to align on what the measurements for success here. That includes shared goals. So Amazon's big on goal writing. We're big on that. We're big on coming together for it. But there are security challenges here. So you want to make sure that you all are coming together and aligning for success. So for instance, I talked about this at Reinforce last year, but compliance is a revenue generating activity. Most of the time we're going after compliance because we're breaking into a new market, a new industry, or to get a new customer. And some of the bigger customers with a lot of dollars also have compliance stipulations and requirements. So compliance isn't just like something you just to check the box and do. This is blocking you being able to get this revenue today. So that's why if you align on measurements for success, you can treat the 3-year outlook with tying it to a business objective. The other thing too is in order to deal with all these new incoming requirements, you just can't sit there and wait. You need to thread the needle with regulators, auditors, engineering teams so that everyone understands on the same page of what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve. So yeah. Okay, so now we have 9 minutes left. Oh, so anyone have any questions for me? We're gonna have in the chat. Oh, is AWS working on their own GRC technologies or just helping customers make it easier to work with their current GRC technologies? We're doing both, actually. So there are a couple GRC technologies that we use. One is Audit Manager. And Audit Manager I'm actually working with them right now. It came out probably in 2021, reInvent. And it is a tool that has different frameworks, and it pairs domains like security domains, specific domains, objectives, controls, and it allows you to map it to data sources or evidence you can provide to a regulator or auditor. So that's one. Then there is CloudFormation or Config, which is not necessarily a GRC tool in traditional sense. It's more of like a compliance as code version. It kind of keeps everything built from a conformance pack that lends itself to a specific audit framework. So that's one. Now, there's also professional services, which is a group within AWS that works with customers to help them be compliant. And we have a lot of partners, like even though we have our own technologies, we have a lot of AWS partners that we work with that have their own GRC solutions and technologies as well. And they're on top of AWS, meaning they use us as their infrastructure and they do the software and the platform pieces, or they just do the software itself. So we help customers with both, with just here's the technology if you already know how to work it, and then here's the professional services for other technologies, or just to help them understand compliance in general to meet their objectives. Anyone have any other questions? And Akeem, did this help? Oh, processing data at the edge. When you're talking about the edge, are you talking about more so the network infrastructure edge? So I might be asking for a back and forth for that one. So I do not have an opinion. I honestly do not have an opinion because it depends on what you're talking about. There's so many different areas you're thinking about for that. And I don't know if there's any prescriptive regulation regarding how to process data at the edge. And when you're talking about the edge, or you're talking about the network perimeter, there is protocol, security protocols for the perimeter that are mandated, like moving from IPv4 to IPv6. Like that is there. But I don't think there is any regulation or they're going into about how to process data outside of the security protocols that are laid out. Yeah, I have no opinion unless there is another risk. Oh, and do the cloud supervise data processing at edge? Yes, I wouldn't say that it supervises data processing at edge. There's a couple of things with it. So there's the shared responsibility model that AWS, but any other cloud provider has, right? It depends on what you choose. There are certain services that allow customers to do that based on the network architecture that they come up with. And there's things that we do for any network for like security of the cloud, like of the overlying full enclave that you're in at the region level. So if you're in the US, there's a region that you deal with. Like that is something that we mandate, right? But if you are making your own enclave, there's solutions that we give to you, but it depends on what you request to do. So I feel bad for saying it, but the answer is always, it depends. Have a great day, guys. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye.